You're listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, hosted by Erin Walker and Heather Dyer. Tune in weekly to get inspired and make good food. Hello and welcome to Three Kitchens Podcast and another episode we got coming for you. How are you today, Heather?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I am really excited about what I'm making today because, as you know, not too long ago, I was in Arizona visiting some family, and we went to this cute little old mining town called Oatman. And it's really just like a ghost town tourist attraction kind of place. It's this dusty, old, desolate village that is on the scenic Route 66.
Oh, fun.
And there's a lot of mining that still happens by people around there. Some people have mines set up and they extract gold. There's still veins of gold that they can find. And it's nothing much. Usually it's enough to pay for the beer.
Oh, okay.
Is what they'll tell you. It's not a lot. But it's kind of a neat old place to go. And they've got, you know, some history. There's wild donkeys that live out in those hills still. So the burros are out there. And while we were there, they also had this cute little antique shop. Oh, Heather, you and me could spend forever snooping through there.
Love those places.
Vintage toys, vintage china, vintage old teacups, you know, old horseshoes. As we snooped around in here, I also found some old cast iron. Oh, Heather, they had so many fun cast iron dishes. They had ones that were shaped in the cobs of corn, so you could make your cornbread.
Oh,
like
yes,
little
I've seen those. So
bits
cute.
of corn. They had like the poaching egg pan, you know, that's got all the little divots in it. They had so many cool cast irons. If I could have packed home like 100 pounds of cast iron, I might.
How much would the airline charge you for that?
Oh, God.
A lot.
Yeah. Nope, not happening.
You'll have to drive down at some point and get stuff like that in the back of your truck.
Don't enable me. It will be bad. So what I did pick up were 4 little 6-inch cast iron pans, but I've got this old funky cast iron that I now have to figure out how to restore. So I've done a little bit of reading. I've done a little bit of experimenting. I don't think I'm quite there yet, so I'm going to have to give you more details after I take this on. But from what I understand, you're going to want to get a lye solution to remove the seasoning.
Oh.
So that's like all the old baked on grease and crud from years of use.
And you spend all that time seasoning your cast iron, and then someday somebody's
for
going
me to come take it off.
Strip it off.
I mean, if I knew what it was,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be so worried, but
if you knew where it had been.
yeah, like,
where's this pan been?
I don't know, like was some guy like changing his oil with this pan?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you don't know what it's been used for. Was it his dog's dish? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you want to remove the seasoning with lye. You want to use vinegar to remove any of the rust. And then you give it a soapy wash. And then you can start re-seasoning it by wiping it with oil and putting it upside down in your oven and heating it up to kind of recoat it. So I'm going to strip everything off and then redo it again. Yeah, so I've got these little cast iron pans. You know what I'm going to make in them?
Yeah, what are you going to make in them? I do know, but
but you're going to play along
for
with
the
my
sake
game.
of the show. Yeah. What are you going to make in them, Erin?
I've only been talking about it for like months and leading you along like a carrot in front of a donkey. All right.
It's not much different.
Terrible jokes.
Looks about the same over here.
Yeah. I'm going to make some skillet brownies because if you ask me, there's nothing better than an ooey gooey chewy brownie in a nice hot skillet. There used to be somewhere we would go for dinner, like Earl's or Joey Tomatoes or something, when my husband and I were a bunch of young kids, and they had cast iron skillet brownies.
I don't know that I've ever eaten a brownie out of a cast iron skillet.
See, this is what it reminds me of. So I'm going to try and make this skillet brownie.
Listen, the brownie sounds like a piece of cake. Ha ha. next to stripping off all the goo from the pans. I think that's your big job.
Once I've done that though, then I can use these to make individual chicken pot pies. Or, little baked potato dishes or
a mini ratatouille or something.
Right.
Oh, you could do all kinds of cute little things in there.
There's so many fun things that I could just then take pictures of. So I just have to get through this step.
Pictures of. I was thinking of just the eating.
And then consuming, of course. So, questions I have for you about brownies and your brownie preferences.
Oh.
Because I might make
You might ignore everything I say, but
I might ignore it. I'll pretend like I care and then do whatever I want. No. I'll go down a couple different paths based on your response to how you feel about the following ingredients with your brownies.
Okay.
So, are you a yes or no if there was peanut butter involved?
Yes.
Okay. How do you feel about nuts in your brownies?
Love them.
Okay. What's your opinion on salted caramel?
Oh my God, that sounds delicious.
All right.
I'm going to go for everything you say. I'm just like, yes, yes, yes.
I didn't think there would be a no in here. Let's put it that way. So I will do some experimenting. I will do some playing around with the recipe. I have a great baked brownie recipe that I like making in like a baking dish. So I will probably take that recipe and then do some modifications, add, subtract, multiply, and see what I get out of it. I would think
that one of the things you would have to really consider is the baking time, right? Because they're small and shallow, which might bake up differently than a pan, your normal cake pan, right?
Yeah.
Is there any flavor that you don't like with chocolate? Can you think of it?
I personally don't like super dark chocolate. What do you feel?
I have a flavor combo that I really, really dislike. And
I think I know what it is.
Do you? Chocolate and orange.
That's what I was going to guess.
Because you don't like it too, or you just...
I like it.
Oh, okay. You know those chocolate oranges that you smash and it falls into pieces? It's like a candy at Christmas, that round thing. Oh, it's just the worst. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why, but anytime I hear about orange and chocolate, I'm just like, skip.
Once upon a time, we made chocolate covered dates and we grated orange zest into it.
Okay.
Maybe it's because you're eating crappy chocolate oranges.
Yeah, that could be.
Because
could be. Maybe a fresh orange zest would be different than artificial orange flavor. Gee, I can't imagine how that might taste different.
If we've learned anything, it could be the artificialness that is turning you off. Well, I don't think I'm going to go down orange and chocolate land. Peanut butter, nuts, salted caramel. Those were the ways I was going. So
yeah, that all sounds pretty good.
Excellent. Well, I think I'm going to do a few variations on this. I have 4 pans, so why would I make 4 of the same brownies?
Oh, I like the sound of that. Mix it up.
If the basic recipe I can do some adding to and just kind of see what I like best, I think we're going to come out with 4 different delicious brownies. And then I personally feel like you have to have some ice cream on top. I know that ice cream's not your friend. So what is the best alternative for a vanilla ice cream? What's your...
Well, there are lots of really good plant-based ice creams.
Yeah, I was wondering what your favorite is.
Oh, I don't know if I have a brand, but like a
soy
cashew
or an almond, a cashew. Okay.
Like a cashew
oh, yeah.
ice cream. There's lots of good options. The other thing for non-dairy folks that would be good on like a brownie would be whipped coconut cream, which is... we discovered very delicious. I think you first made that with the persimmon pudding.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was when you first made it for us.
I've even made it a couple times just because it's delicious.
Oh, it's so good. It's a great whipped cream sub, but also it could be if you want something creamy with your cake. This would be a good option too.
Get your brownie testing spoons ready. We are going to have brownies.
Hey, Erin, do we ever tell people that we have a website?
I think so. It's in our show notes.
We have a website and we post the recipes from our episodes. And we also have recipes on there that have not made it onto an episode. It's just stuff that we've cooked, tested out, and that we love.
Like what you did with that lamb short rib. That was delicious.
That's right. I make donuts with pancake mix. I have that kid who doesn't like to eat pancakes, but he'll eat one in a donut pan.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a way to do something a little bit different, we've got multiple options for you to explore.
And of course, all of our episodes, including the speakeasy bonus episodes and the drink recipes, that's all on there. So visit us over at threekitchenspodcast.com.
Well, we're back here to yap about brownies.
Mm-hmm.
Did they make your day?
Oh my God. Oh, I couldn't believe the delivery. It was like a huge bag with 2 full cast iron pans of 4 different types of brownies, plus a jar of caramel, plus a little pint of ice cream. I was like, I am so spoiled. I'm like overwhelming.
Well, you know my theory on making New Year's resolutions in the gym is it's only effective if you have something to work off. So now you have something to work off.
I haven't been in the gym for over a week, and you're just making me feel worse now. I haven't even thought about that.
I'm a terrible person. Sorry, bad influence.
You gave me
everyone gets chocolate.
Lots of brownies. Very impressive. And I'm really interested to hear what you did in the end with your pans, because they looked beautiful.
They turned out pretty good. So why don't we start there with how I got these pans prepped? Because I think if you've got an older cast iron pan and it's getting gross and you want to re-clean it, or if you're like me and you've thrifted some cast iron, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was a lot of elbow grease to get this done, and my hands look like I'm like a mechanic or something from this because all around my nails, it's like black from scrubbing. I could have found some gloves and taken care of myself better, but this is hard work. So don't fool yourself.
But she's not here to make it sound easy.
I'm not here to make you be like, oh, what a breeze. I think there's better ways you can do it. I didn't go the lye route. I did not source or seek out lye. I thought, no, it's not at the everyday place I'm looking. If I have to go out of my way, a lot of other people aren't going to go out of their way either. How can I make this happen? So I figured you're looking for a strong base to help break down the grease that has built up on your pans for a while. So instead of the lye, I used baking soda because it's basic. And so I put these pans into a little wash tub bin, filled it up with hot water, and then dissolved as much baking soda as I could in there. And then I added a little extra. I added a little bit of dish soap to it. And then I let it sit for 24 hours. So I just put it in this little wash tub. I stuck it underneath the cabinet in my kitchen where it won't get disturbed. And then the next day I took it out and with steel wool started scrubbing and rubbing down. And like the first couple times I did this, a lot came off. So it was really effective for that newer, less caked on goo. But after the first couple times, I was like, I'm not getting anywhere much. And it's mostly just me scrubbing this off with
your brute force.
Just the elbow grease in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So then they said after that to get any rust off, because as you wash the grease and the seasoning off of your pan, you're taking off all this grease and you're exposing raw metal. And as soon as you expose raw metal with water, you get rust. So all the pans were a little bit rusty when I was done this. So then you're going to go and pop them into a vinegar bath, let them sit, scrub it off. And then you want to soap and water, wash the pans, dry them off, and then you can start reseasoning them. And I did that just by rubbing some sunflower oil, just some of that on a paper towel. I rubbed down the whole pan, handle, front, back, inside, outside. Placed it upside down in my oven. They said 450 for 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's really hot.
That's the point.
Yeah. So I did 400 for 30 minutes, and you can do that repeatedly to kind of re-season your pan and get that layer started. And it almost, they described it as plasticizing the oil onto the surface of the pan to create that non-stick layer. I'll season my pans over time. I'm not super concerned about getting them perfectly seasoned right for this go, but I just wanted them sealed and not rusting anymore. And that was definitely obtained doing this. Now, whenever I clean them after I've cooked in them, whatever's in them, I just heat up with water on the stove until it comes to a boil. I scrape it off with a wooden spoon. I rinse it all. So if it's really greasy, I dump it in the compost. Or if it's just in the sink, I can just rinse it off in there, no soap or anything, and just dry it with a paper towel, put a little bit of oil on it again, and then it can sit in my cupboard until the next time I use it. So I have 4 new cast iron pans.
Well, that looks fantastic.
It worked out really quite well.
Yeah, you would never know that these were a mess not long ago. I really do like that trick. I didn't know it until I guess, I don't know, when I say recent, that could be any time in the last 10 years, honestly, with the way my brain works. But
that's okay. I think recent is 10 years. I'm with you there.
Fairly recently, I learned that trick of like after you cook in your pan on your stove, when your food's all out and everything, is to pour some water in there while the pan is hot, push it to the back of the stovetop and just leave it there until after dinner. And then it sort of cooks off in the water all the stuck stuff. It works so great. And then it's so easy to just pop it in the sink and clean it off. Yeah, it's a great trick.
Yeah, and if you're forgetful or you haven't emptied the pan quite as fast or it's sat overnight, if you just put a cup of water in there and heat it up again, it works just as well too.
Good to know.
Yeah, and one of the pans has some labeling and marking on the bottom of it. So I did a little bit of research to see
fun.
how old it is or where it came from. And so it's a Wagner ware pan. And based on what I read online, it sounds like those pans were made with these markings on them between 1935 and 1955. So fun.
That's cool.
I thought it was kind of fun that there was one that was a more known brand. And
very cool.
Yeah. So,
and they're kind of bigger than I expected them to be too. When you said like little individual, I mean, they're not huge, but somehow I pictured brownies like tiny. They seem like quite big.
It is a 6-inch diameter pan. So when I say individual serving sizes, I'm assuming you're a greedy individual. This isn't for the faint of heart.
No, they're quite big. Yeah.
It's a substantial serving of brownies. So I was able to make the batter for all 4 of these brownie batches at the same time, and then just add little things to them right at the end when I put the batter into the pans to cook it to make each of them different flavors. So for the basic brownie recipe, I've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 6 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you're just going to mix those dry ingredients together and put them on the side. And then in a saucepan, you're going to take your semi-sweet chocolate. So this could be baking chocolate that you buy, or you can use chocolate chips. I used a combination of both because I had not quite enough baking chocolate and not quite enough chocolate chips.
Nice.
So it all worked out. You got 9 ounces of those and 3/4 cup of butter. Pop it into a saucepan on medium-low heat and just let it melt until everything comes together. And you want your butter mixed in with your chocolate, but you don't want it burning to the bottom. So I would say keep the heat pretty low. Take your time doing it. It doesn't take too much. And once you've got that melted, you can take your pan off and just put it on a heat-proof surface while you get the rest of your wet ingredients put together. In a medium mixing bowl, medium to large, because this is going to be what you mix everything together in, you're going to crack 4 eggs and add in 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and a tablespoon of vanilla extract. And you want to whisk that all together until it gets nice and frothy. And then you can take your butter and chocolate mixture that you've melted and slowly start pouring it in there while you whisk, because you don't want the heat from the chocolate and butter to cook your eggs. You just want to keep your batter moving.
You don't want scrambled eggs.
You don't want scrambled egg brownies. That is not one of the variations I'm making for you. And then once you've got all those wet ingredients together, you're going to dump that bowl of dry ingredients, so your flour, cocoa powder, and salt, on top, and then just gently fold that batter together. So you don't want to overmix it too hard. I just kind of use a spatula and scrape the sides and over the middle and just keep turning your bowl and doing that until it all incorporates together. And then if you just want to make good old regular tasty delicious brownies, you're done. So you can pour that into your baking dish. If you've got these little pans, great. If you don't, you can bake this in a larger, like an 8x8 baking dish. I would grease it first and then just adjust your cooking times. If you want to do all these fun little toppings and add-ins that I did, I made 4 different types. So the first one was just the plain brownie batter. The second one, I mixed in some smashed hazelnuts. I have a recipe from Chatelaine that has hazelnuts in the brownies, and I just freaking love the hazelnuts in the brownies so much. My only recommendation would be buy the hazelnuts that are already out of their shell, because once upon a time I tried buying the whole hazelnuts, and I don't know if you've ever tried to crack these things. Holy hell, I had pieces of hazelnut all over my kitchen, because when you finally did crack them, it was like they exploded, and they were so much work to do. So don't ever make that bad choice. I had like blisters on my hands from trying to like crack them with the terrible nut crack.
Do you do like nuts in the shell at Christmas?
Yeah.
You have like all the assorted nuts and you have your little cracker thing. And yeah, it's the only time I ever eat nuts in the shell. Well, I've always bought like a bag of mixed all kinds of nuts in there, right? And hazelnuts are like the best of them. So you try to eat those ones, get those ones first before everybody else does. Every so often you hit one that is just so fucking hard. You cannot open it. You cannot crack that nut.
No.
And it's like, oh, forget it. You just toss that one back in and somebody else later will try to crack it.
All I know is it's like never again buy hazelnut in the shell.
So much work.
So to put the hazelnuts into the batter, once I put the batter into the pan, I sprinkled the hazelnuts on top and then just folded the batter a couple more times to distribute the nuts and then set it aside. And it's ready for baking. The third variety that I did was peanut butter. So I had about a tablespoon, maybe 2, I don't know. I just took a spoon into my peanut butter jar and flopped a couple globs of peanut butter on top. And then I just smoothed it around and mixed it a little bit, swirled it into the top of the batter that was in the pan. And again, that was it. Put it off to the side. Number 4 was the salted caramel. So same deal, just a couple tablespoons, plopped it onto the top of the batter, swirl it around. I sprinkled a little bit of salt on top too, because for me, salted caramel isn't just about the fact that the caramel's salty. You also have to have those little pops of salt that burst in flavor. So, and then the salted caramel that I made was actually homemade as well. Yay!
Is that a real yay or
yay? It was actually really easy, and it was something I've never done before. So I've never done any of this candy making stuff. And so it was an easy 4-ingredient recipe from Sally's Baking Addiction that I adapted this from. So you start out with a cup of sugar that you melt in a saucepan. And at first I was like, what do you mean you melt sugar in a saucepan? I was looking at that and my brain was like stalling on the first step. So you seriously put sugar into a saucepan, turn it on to medium, and it will start to clump together at the bottom. And you keep stirring it and it's like stuck to your spoon. And then there's all these weird crispy bits that are in there. But then it does eventually melt and form this amber liquid.
Oh, is this granulated white sugar?
Granulated white sugar. It melts.
I've never done that.
Neither have I. So I had this wonderful pot of hot liquid sugar now, and you add in 6 tablespoons of butter, and you want to add this in kind of one after the other, but you don't want to add it in all at once, because when you add the butter into that hot sugar, it starts to spit and spatter and bubble and boil, and it's quite intense. So just, a piece at a time, keep whisking. You don't have to let it totally dissolve, but it just, as you gradually add it in, I think it makes it safer to incorporate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third ingredient was heavy cream. And I know heavy cream is not our friend here.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, why can't we just use coconut cream? So I did ask, can I do this? And she said, other people have said so. We haven't tried it, but go for it. And I'm here to tell you, it works. Easy.
Nice.
No problem at all. So half a cup of cream that you just slowly incorporate in. Again, by adding in this stuff to this really hot pot. It's very bubbly and splattery and yikes. Once you get your cream in there, you want to stop stirring. It probably is still boiling or close to. And once it starts to boil, don't touch it for 1 minute.
Oh,
just stand there and look at that pot.
That's so hard.
Press the timer on your stove and just watch it bubble and fizz.
It's
and
so hard
snap.
not to stir that.
Once that minute's up, you take it off, heat-proof surface, and then put in your salt. I only put in half a teaspoon of salt. The recipe recommended 1, but because I know I like to add salt to my salted caramel, when I serve it, I didn't add the full amount, or else I think it would have been too salty.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't like a really salty caramel. I like a somewhat salty caramel with little pops of salt in it.
A hint of salt.
It makes about 2 cups in total, and I thought a whole teaspoon of salt in 2 cups of any liquid seems like too much. So I halved it. And then you just let it sit and cool until you're ready to use it. And once you put it in a jar, you can keep it in your fridge for up to a month.
Oh, wow.
If good. You can make it last that long. I'm going to go and dip some apples in this. No question about it.
Yum.
And I even have some hazelnuts left, so maybe it'll be like apple caramel nut. So these guys, I popped them all into a baking sheet, just because that's the easiest way to transport for these little pans. Pop them into my oven. I preheated it to 350. And then once I popped them into the oven, I turned it down to 325, just because I like a crispier outer edge on my stuff. So sometimes I like to do that. They baked in my oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, I want to say.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you like in doneness. So if you want your brownies like all the way cooked through, you want to look at the center of your pan, and the middle should be puffing up to sort of the same level as the sides. As it cooks, it starts to rise.
Right.
So you'll see there's like a dip in the middle, and as it cooks, that dip becomes less pronounced, and then it'll rise and it'll puff. So once it's kind of puffy, everything's cooked through. If you like it a little undercooked, then take it out of the oven while it still has that little depression in the middle.
And then it's a little gooier. Mm-hmm. Remember, everybody, just when we talk here about our experiences with baking,
oh gosh,
we're at a pretty high altitude.
Yeah.
Where we live. So I don't think we really mentioned that enough, but
didn't even think about it till you mentioned it.
I know we hardly ever think to mention it, but our experience might be different than yours in terms of baking time. So just to be aware.
Yeah. I think it's important to know what visual cues you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then you take these out of the oven and you eat them.
With ice cream, with more caramel,
whipped cream,
whatever you like.
For breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad about it.
Do not feel the guilt.
So, how identifiably different were they for you?
Oh, they were totally different.
Okay.
And
good.
I have a ranking. I have ranked them.
Fabulous.
Most favorite to least favorite, even though I like them all, and really it makes no difference. I just thought for fun I would rank them.
I love it.
And if you were to look at my pans now, you'll see which one's completely gone. My favorite is the caramel, salted caramel. I thought that was the best flavor, like that gooey caramelly sweetness in there. I really liked. Mm-hmm. That followed very closely, almost tied with the nuts, because I love nuts in brownies.
Yeah.
And then I would say the plain brownie.
Okay.
And I would put peanut butter last.
Ooh, peanut butter lost the battle.
Well, I mean, it's still a fantastic
I will not
brownie.
eat this peanut butter brownie. Ooh.
I'm still gonna eat it. And I like the caramel on all of them. I like the cashew ice cream that you gave me on all of it. I like
good.
it all together. It's These are so good.
I also would have ranked the caramel one as my favorite. I'm glad that the one that took the most time, because I made the caramel sauce for it, paid out in terms of being the best.
Oh,
I hate
yeah.
it when I put a ton of effort into
Yeah.
something. I'm like, yeah, I could have gone without that, whatever.
The plain one was so much better than the one I put all this time into.
Thankfully, that didn't happen. Yeah, I loved that caramel and that salt. I think the caramel changed how it cooked when it all melted in too, because that one was the most depressed in the middle, whereas the one that was the nut, because the nuts kind of break up the batter, was the most puffed up one. So it was the most cooked one. So it's interesting that those two, being the most different in their doneness, were your top two rankings.
Like the textures are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Very interesting.
Those pans really are adorable. I love stuff like that. So cute.
Well, you have two of them now. So if you feel like taking them for a spin around the block and putting something else in them,
return them to you?
before you return them, you go right ahead. No pressure, but just know that me pan a soup pan.
I'll think about that. I'll let you know. Whereas I feel like it's a bit large for a single brownie. It really is.
It really is.
For
Yeah.
a dessert, it's very large. But for a meal, like you could do a one pan meal in there. You could do like a baked pasta in there.
It's like when you go to the restaurant, you get like the individually baked lasagnas.
Yes. Usually they're in those sort of like enamelware dishes, but I think these cast irons
they would work too.
Perfect for that. Yeah, I love that idea.
It sounds like we're opening a restaurant, Heather.
We sure are not.
These brownies are on my menu now.
We could throw a very nice dinner party, even though neither of us like to host parties.
Oh, it'll be like the opposite. You know how people always hire the catering service for their parties? We'll hire the hosts and we'll cater the parties.
Yeah. Come to my house and be the paid host.
Exactly.
Answer my door and pretend it's your house. That would be so funny. And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and on our website at threekitchenspodcast.com. Remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and leave a review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening.
But when I'm a grandma, I'll be more fun.
Sure.